The alarm went off at exactly 1400 hours on orbital station Harmony. It was not the kind of alarm that meant fire or hull breach. This alarm was different. It was the sound that told everyone something very important had gone missing. Ambassador Velkara stood in the middle of her quarters. Her silver fur stood up on her back. Her golden eyes were wide with fear. Her claws were out. She looked at the empty sleeping pod where her 3 cubs had been resting just 1 hour ago. The pod was empty now. The soft blankets were pushed aside. The small toys were still there. But her babies were gone. She let out a scream that echoed through the diplomatic wing of the station. It was a sound that made every species on board feel cold. The Mirathi were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors. They were proud. They were strong. But when it came to their young, they became something else entirely. They became dangerous. Security officers came running. The first to arrive was a young human named Danny Brooks. He was 23 years old and had only been on the station for 6 months. He had never seen a Mirathi up close before. When he saw Velkara with her claws out and her teeth showing, he almost turned and ran, but he did not run. He held up his hands to show he meant no harm. "Ambassador," he said in a calm voice. "What happened?" "My cubs," Velkara hissed. "Someone took my cubs?" Danny felt his heart drop. He knew what this meant. The Mirathi were here to sign a peace treaty with 5 other species. If their cubs were missing, if someone had taken them, it could start a war. A real war. The kind that killed billions of people across many worlds. He touched his communicator. "Security Chief Castillo, we have a situation in the diplomatic wing. Priority 1. The Mirathi ambassador's cubs are missing." The response came back in 2 seconds. "On my way." "Lock down the section." Danny looked at Velkara. "Ma'am, we are going to find them. I promise you." Velkara moved toward him so fast he did not have time to react. She grabbed the front of his uniform with one clawed hand and pulled him close. Her face was inches from his. He could smell her breath. He could see every detail of her alien features. The whiskers, the sharp teeth, the golden eyes that held so much pain and rage. "If anything has happened to them," she said in a low voice, "I will tear this station apart piece by piece. Do you understand me, human?" Danny nodded. He did not doubt her words for a single moment. "Security Chief." Ryan Castillo arrived 3 minutes later with a team of 12 officers. He was a tall man with gray hair and a face that looked like it had seen too many problems in its lifetime. He was 51 years old and had been doing this job for over 20 years. He had handled riots, smuggling operations, and even a hostage situation once. But this was different. This was children. Alien children. And the mother looked ready to kill everyone in sight. He approached carefully. "Ambassador Velkara, I am Ryan Castillo. I am in charge of security on this station. I need you to tell me everything. When did you last see your cubs? Who had access to your quarters? Did you notice anything strange?" Velkara took a deep breath. She was trying to control herself. The effort was visible on her face. "I put them in their sleeping pod 1 hour ago. I went to the meeting room for the treaty discussion. The door was locked. Only I have the code. When I came back, they were gone." Castillo looked at the door. He looked at the sleeping pod. He looked at the ventilation shaft near the ceiling. It was small, but it was not locked. The cover was slightly open. "Did your cubs ever try to explore?" he asked. "Are they the curious type?" Velkara paused. Her expression changed slightly. "They are young. They do not know danger yet. They like to climb. They like to explore small spaces." Her eyes went to the ventilation shaft. "No, they could not have. It is too high." Castillo shook his head. "Ambassador, I have seen human children climb things that should be impossible. If your cubs are climbers, that shaft is not too high. They probably climbed the furniture and went in there." This should have made Velkara feel better. It meant no one had taken her cubs. But instead, she looked even more afraid. The ventilation system goes everywhere on this station. They could be anywhere. They could be hurt. They could be scared. They are so small. Castillo put a hand on her arm. It was a risk. Touching a Mirathi without permission could get a person killed. But he did it anyway. We are going to find them. I am putting every officer on this. We will search every corner of this station. He turned to his team. I want teams in every section. Check every corridor, every room, every storage closet. Check the maintenance tunnels. Check the cargo bays. These cubs are small and probably scared. They might be hiding. They might not come out if you call. Look in every small space you can find. The officers moved out fast. Danny stayed behind for a moment. He looked at Velkara and felt sorry for her. She was not a monster. She was a mother who had lost her children. He understood that feeling. His own mother had lost him once in a shopping center when he was 4. She had cried for an hour after she found him. We will find them, he said again. Then he went to join the search. Meanwhile, on the other side of the station, in the quiet records archive, a woman named Katie Morgan sat at her desk. She had no idea what was happening. The archive was far from the diplomatic wing. The alarms did not reach this section. The announcements had not started yet. Katie was 26 years old. She had brown hair that she kept in a simple ponytail. She had green eyes and a kind face. She was not tall or short. She was not loud or quiet. She was just normal. The kind of person you might pass in a hallway and forget about 5 minutes later, but Katie had one thing that made her different from most people on the station. She had a big gray hoodie that she wore every single day. It was old and soft. It had a large front pocket. It was against the uniform rules, but her supervisor had given up trying to make her stop wearing it years ago. Katie liked her job. She worked with old documents and records. She translated things. She organized files. It was quiet work. Peaceful work. The kind of work where you could go hours without seeing another person. She had been at her desk since morning. She had eaten lunch at her desk. She had not moved except to get coffee twice. She was focused on a translation that was giving her trouble. Some old trade agreement from 50 years ago. She did not hear the soft sound in the ventilation shaft above her head. She did not notice when the vent cover moved slightly. She did not see 3 small faces looking down at her from the darkness. The cubs had been traveling through the shafts for almost an hour. They were tired. They were scared. They did not know where they were. Everything smelled strange. Everything sounded strange. They wanted their mother. They wanted to feel safe. And then they smelled something. Something warm. Something that reminded them of home. Something that smelled like the dens where Mirathi cubs were supposed to sleep. It was coming from the human below them. One by one they climbed down. They were very quiet. They were very careful. They moved like the hunters their species was known for being. They dropped onto Katie's desk without making a sound. Katie noticed nothing. She was too focused on her work. The cubs looked at her. They looked at the big gray hoodie. They could feel the warmth coming from it. The front pocket was open. It was dark inside. It looked safe. The first cub climbed into the pocket. Then the second. Then the third. They curled up together against Katie's warm stomach. They closed their eyes, and for the first time since they had left their sleeping pod, they felt safe. Katie felt something move against her stomach. She thought it was just the fabric of her hoodie bunching up. She shifted in her chair and kept working. The cubs began to purr. On the other side of the station, the search continued. Security officers ran through corridors. They shouted into empty rooms. They crawled through maintenance tunnels. They found nothing, and in the quiet records archive, Katie Morgan kept working. She had no idea that 3 missing alien cubs were sleeping peacefully in her hoodie. She had no idea that the entire station was looking for them. She had no idea that she was about to become the most important person on Orbital Station Harmony. The cubs slept. Katie worked, and the clock kept ticking. 2 hours had passed since the cubs went missing. The station was in chaos. Every security officer was running from one section to another. Every corridor had been searched at least twice. Every room had been opened and checked. But there was still no sign of the three small Mirathi cubs. Security Chief Ryan Castillo stood in the main security office. His face was tired. His eyes were red. He looked at the map of the station on the big screen in front of him. Red dots showed areas that had been searched. Almost the entire station was covered in red dots now. But the cubs were still missing. His communicator buzzed. "Chief, we finished searching the engineering section. Nothing." Another buzz. "Chief, Cargo Bay 7 is clear." "No cubs?" Another buzz. "Chief, the medical wing is empty." We looked everywhere. Castillo rubbed his face with both hands. Where could three small cubs possibly hide? The station was big, yes, but it was not that big. They should have found them by now. The door opened behind him. He turned and saw Ambassador Valkara enter the room. Behind her was her mate, Drenko. Drenko was much bigger than Valkara. He stood over 7 feet tall. His fur was dark gray, almost black. His muscles were visible even under his ceremonial robes. His eyes were not golden like his mates. They were red. And right now, those red eyes were filled with rage. "You have found nothing," Drenko said. His voice was deep and rough. It sounded like rocks grinding together. 2 hours. Your entire security force. And you have found nothing. Castillo stood straight. He was not a small man, but Drenko made him feel like a child. "We are still searching. The station has many small spaces. Your cubs could be hiding anywhere. Or someone has taken them," Drenko growled. "Someone is hiding them. Someone on this station wants to hurt our people. Wants to stop the peace treaty." Castillo shook his head. "We have no evidence of that. The vent cover in your quarters was open. Your cubs most likely crawled into the ventilation system on their own. They are exploring. They are lost. But they are probably safe." "Probably," Valkara repeated. Her voice was ice-cold. "My children are lost in a station full of species who do not understand them. Species who might see them as threats. Species who might hurt them by accident or on purpose. And you tell me they are probably safe." Castillo had no answer for that. She was right. The station had over 3,000 people from 6 different species. Not everyone was friendly. Not everyone liked the Mirathi. Some species had old problems with them. Old fights. Old wars. "We will find them," he said again. It was all he could say. Drenko stepped forward. He was so close that Castillo could smell him. The Mirathi had a strange smell, like metal and forest mixed together. "If my cubs are hurt," Drenko said very quietly, "I will destroy this station. I will kill everyone on board. Do you understand me, human?" Castillo did not step back. He met those red eyes without fear. "I understand. But threatening me will not help us find your children faster. Let my people do their job." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Valkara put her hand on her mate's arm. "Drenko, not yet. Let them search." The big Mirathi stepped back, but his eyes never left Castillo. The message was clear. Time was running out. On the other side of the station, Katie Morgan was still at her desk. She had finished the trade agreement translation and moved on to something else. An old report about mining operations on some distant moon. Boring stuff. But that was her job. She yawned and stretched her arms above her head. Something in her hoodie made a small sound, almost like a squeak. Katie looked down at her stomach and frowned. "That was weird," she muttered to herself. She poked at the front pocket of her hoodie. It felt warm. Warmer than it should be. And there was something inside. Something soft. Katie assumed it was her lunch napkin from earlier. She had stuffed it in there after eating her sandwich. She decided to check later and went back to work. The cubs stirred slightly at her touch. One of them opened its eyes for a moment. It saw the inside of the pocket. It smelled the warm human smell. It felt safe. It closed its eyes again and went back to sleep. Katie felt a vibration against her stomach. It was gentle. Almost pleasant. She thought it was the environmental systems acting strange again. The station was old. Things broke down all the time. A weird vibration was nothing new. Her colleague Nathan Price walked into the archive 30 minutes later. He was tall and thin with messy brown hair and glasses. He was 28 years old and had been working with Katie for almost 2 years. They were friends. Not close friends, but work friends. The kind who ate lunch together sometimes and complained about their supervisor together. "Hey, Katie," Nathan said. "Have you heard what's happening?" Katie looked up from her screen. "No, what's happening?" Nathan sat on the edge of her desk. "The whole station is going crazy. The Mirathi ambassador's cubs are missing. Security is searching everywhere. People are saying someone might have kidnapped them." Katie's eyes went wide. "That's terrible. Those poor cubs. And that poor mother. She must be so scared." Nathan nodded. "Everyone is scared. If they don't find those cubs, there might be a war. The Mirathi are not known for being forgiving. Have they searched this section yet?" Nathan shook his head. "I don't think so. The archive is pretty far from the diplomatic wing. They're probably focusing on the areas closer to where the cubs disappeared." Katie thought about this. "Should we help look? Maybe we could search around here." Nathan shrugged. Security told everyone to stay at their stations. They don't want random people running around making their job harder. Just keep your eyes open, I guess. If you see anything weird, call it in." Katie nodded. "Okay, I hope they find them soon." Nathan got up to leave. He stopped at the door and looked back at her. "Are you feeling okay? You look a little weird." Katie frowned. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. You're sitting funny, like you're holding something." Katie looked down at herself. She was sitting with her back very straight. Her arms were slightly away from her body. She had not noticed she was doing it. It was like her body had naturally moved to make more room in the front of her hoodie without her thinking about it. "I'm fine," she said. "Just tired." "Long day." Nathan accepted this answer and left. Katie sat still for a moment. She looked at her hoodie again. The front pocket was bulging more than usual. And now that Nathan had said something, she realized she was holding herself strangely. Like she was protecting something. She reached slowly toward the pocket, then her communicator buzzed with a work message. Someone needed a file translated right away. Important stuff. Could not wait. Katie sighed and went back to work. Whatever was in her pocket could wait. It was probably just her imagination anyway. The cubs slept on. They were warm. They were comfortable. The steady beat of Katie's heart was like music to them. The warmth of her body was like their mother's den. They had never felt so safe in their short lives, and Katie kept working. Still not knowing. Still not understanding. The clock on her desk showed 16 o'clock, 4 hours since the cubs went missing. The station was getting more desperate. The Mirathi were getting more angry. And the cubs were sleeping peacefully in her hoodie, closer to her than any alien had ever been to a human before. The search continued. Officers opened every door. They checked under every bed. They looked in every cabinet. They found nothing. And in the quiet archive, Katie Morgan typed away at her desk, completely unaware that she was holding the key to peace between 6 species against her warm human body. The cubs purred softly, and the galaxy held its breath. The clock on Katie's desk showed 17:30. Almost 6 hours had passed since the Mirathi cubs went missing. Katie had finished 3 more translations. She had answered 12 messages. She had drunk 4 cups of coffee, and she still had no idea what was sleeping in her hoodie. She was getting ready to leave for the day. She saved her work and closed her programs. She stretched her arms and rolled her neck. Her back was stiff from sitting so long. She needed to walk. Maybe get some dinner. Maybe watch something on her personal screen before sleeping. She pushed her chair back and started to stand up. Something moved in her HODIE. Katie froze. Her body went completely still. She was half standing, half sitting, her hands on the armrests of her chair. She looked down at her stomach. The front pocket of her hoodie was moving. Not just a little bit, It was really moving. Like something inside was waking up. Katie slowly sat back down. Her heart was beating fast. Her mind was racing. What was in there? A rat? Some kind of alien bug? Had something crawled into her hoodie while she was working? She took a deep breath. She had grown up on a farm in Nebraska. She had dealt with animals her whole life. Scared animals, angry animals, wild animals that had wandered into the barn. She knew how to stay calm. She knew that sudden movements only made things worse. Very slowly, very carefully. She lifted the edge of her hoodie pocket and looked inside. 3 pairs of golden eyes looked back at her. Katie stopped breathing. The cubs were awake now. They were looking up at her with curious expressions. Their silver fur was soft and fluffy. Their ears were small and round. Their little noses twitched as they smelled her. One of them made a small sound. A tiny mew. Like a baby cat, but not quite the same. Katie's brain took several seconds to understand what she was seeing. These were not rats. These were not bugs. These were the missing Mirathy cubs. The cubs that the entire station was searching for? The cubs that might start a war if they were not found, and they were in her hoodie. They had been there for hours, sleeping against her stomach, using her body heat to stay warm. Katie did not scream. She did not jump up. She did not make any sudden moves. Her farm training took over. Stay calm. Do not scare the animals. Figure out what to do. She let the hoodie pocket close again, hiding the cubs from view. They made small sounds of complaint at the sudden darkness, then settled back down. One of them nuzzled against her stomach. It was the strangest feeling Katie had ever experienced. She needed help, but she could not move. If she moved too much, the cubs might get scared. They might run. They might go back into the ventilation system. And then no one would ever find them. She reached very slowly for her communicator. She typed a message with one hand, keeping her other hand pressed gently against the outside of her hoodie pocket to keep the cubs calm. The message went to Nathan Price. Come to my desk right now. Do not tell anyone. Do not run. Walk slowly. Very important? She sent the message and waited. Nathan arrived 3 minutes later. He walked into the archive with a confused look on his face. Katie, what's going on? Your message was weird. Katie held up one hand to stop him from coming closer. Nathan, stop there. I need you to stay calm. I need you to not make any loud noises. Can you do that? Nathan's confusion turned to worry. Katie, you're scaring me. What's wrong? Promise me you will stay calm. I promise. Just tell me what's happening. Katie slowly lifted the edge of her hoodie pocket again. The 3 cubs looked out at Nathan with their golden eyes. One of them yawned, showing tiny sharp teeth. Nathan's mouth fell open. He did not make a sound. He just stared. They were in there the whole time, Katie whispered. I had no idea. They must have climbed in hours ago. Nathan closed his mouth. He opened it again. He closed it. He looked like a fish trying to breathe on land. Finally, he found words. Those are the cubs. Those are the missing cubs. The ones everyone is looking for. Yes, they've been in your hoodie. For hours. Yes. Why are they in your hoodie? Katie shrugged very carefully, trying not to disturb the cubs. I don't know. They just climbed in, I guess. Maybe they were cold. Maybe they were scared. Maybe they liked the smell. I have no idea. One of the cubs made another small mewing sound. It reached up with one tiny paw and touched the fabric of the hoodie. Then it looked at Katie with those big golden eyes and made a sound that was almost like a purr. Katie felt something strange in her chest. Something warm. Despite the craziness of the situation, despite the fear and the confusion, she felt a sudden wave of affection for these little creatures. They had chosen her. Out of the entire station, they had found her and decided she was safe. We need to call security, Nathan said. I know, but I don't want to scare them. If they run, we might lose them again. Nathan thought about this. Okay, let me call. I'll tell them to come quietly. No alarms, no running. Just walk over here calmly. Katie nodded. Tell them to bring the mother. Ambassador Valcara? If anyone can get these cubs out of my hoodie without scaring them, it's their mother. Nathan made the call. He spoke quietly. He explained the situation. There was a long pause on the other end. Then the voice of Security Chief Castillo came through, sounding both relieved and completely amazed. Stay exactly where you are, Castillo said. Do not move. Do not try to remove the cubs yourself. We are coming. And we are bringing the ambassador. Nathan ended the call. He looked at Katie, she looked at him. Neither of them knew what to say. This is the weirdest thing that has ever happened to me, Katie said finally. Nathan laughed. It was a nervous laugh, but it was still a laugh. This is the weirdest thing that has ever happened to anyone. You have alien babies in your clothes, Katie. How's this your life? Katie looked down at the cubs. They had closed their eyes again. They were falling back asleep against her warm body. Their little faces looked so peaceful, so trusting. I don't know, she said softly, but I don't want them to be scared. I don't want them to think they're in danger. They came to me because they felt safe. I can't let them down. Nathan sat down on a nearby chair. His legs looked shaky. You know, the ambassador was ready to tear the station apart looking for them, right? She's been threatening to kill everyone. Her mate is even worse. They're going to come in here and see their cubs in your hoodie, and I honestly don't know what they're going to do. Katie had not thought about that. She had been so focused on keeping the cubs calm that she had not considered what the parents might do when they arrived. Would they be grateful? Would they be angry? Would they think Katie had stolen their children? She felt a chill run down her spine, but she did not move. She kept her hand pressed gently against her hoodie pocket. The cubs were warm against her stomach. Their soft purring vibrated through her body. Whatever happened next, she would face it. She would stay calm. She would protect these little ones until their mother came for them. That was all she could do. The minutes passed slowly. Katie sat at her desk with 3 alien cubs sleeping in her hoodie. Nathan sat nearby, watching the door. The archive was quiet except for the soft sound of purring, and somewhere on the station, Ambassador Valcara was running toward the records section, her heart pounding with hope and fear. Her cubs had been found, but they were with a human, and Valcara did not know if that was good news or very bad news. The door to the records archive burst open. Katie had expected people to come quietly like she had asked. Instead, what she got was chaos. Ambassador Valcara was first through the door. Her silver fur was wild. Her golden eyes were huge. Behind her came her mate Drenko, his massive body barely fitting through the doorway. Behind them came Security Chief Castillo and at least 10 other officers. Behind them came more Mirathi guards with weapons drawn. So much for staying quiet. The cubs woke up instantly. They felt the vibrations of so many feet. They heard the loud voices. They smelled their mother's fear and their father's anger. And they were terrified. All 3 of them started crying at once. It was a high, thin sound, like 3 tiny alarms going off inside Katie's hoodie. They scrambled and squirmed against her stomach, trying to burrow deeper into the fabric, trying to hide from the scary sounds. Katie did the only thing she could think of. She wrapped both arms around her hoodie pocket and bent over slightly, creating a protective shell around the cubs with her own body. She started making soft, shushing sounds, the same sounds she used to make to calm scared animals on her family's farm. "It's okay," she whispered. "It's okay. You're safe. I've got you." Valcara ran toward Katie's desk. Her claws were out. Her teeth were showing. Every instinct in her body was screaming at her to grab her cubs and get them away from this human. But something made her stop a few feet from Katie. It was the way Katie was holding them. It was the way Katie was protecting them. It was the soft sounds Katie was making. It was not the behavior of someone who had stolen cubs. It was the behavior of someone who was trying to keep them safe. Drenko did not stop. He pushed past his mate and reached for Katie with one massive clawed hand. He was going to grab her. He was going to throw her aside. He was going to take his cubs back. Castillo stepped between them. Ambassador Drenko, stop. Look at what's happening. Drenko snarled at him. Get out of my way, human. Look at your cubs, Castillo said firmly. Listen to them. They were crying a moment ago. Are they crying now? Everyone went quiet, and in that quiet they could all hear it. The cubs had stopped crying. They were still making sounds, but different sounds. Softer sounds, almost like they were being comforted. Katie was still bent over, still making those gentle shushing noises. The cubs had stopped squirming. They were pressed against her stomach, listening to her heartbeat, feeling her warmth. The terror was fading from their little bodies. Velkara stepped closer. Her claws slowly retracted. Her breathing slowed. She watched the human female carefully. This small, soft creature was calming her cubs. Her cubs, who were known for being difficult to settle even in the best circumstances. Her cubs, who had been lost and scared for hours. They were relaxing in this human's arms. How are you doing that? Velkara asked. Her voice was quiet now. Almost gentle. Katie looked up. Her face was pale. Her eyes were wide. She was clearly terrified of all the aliens and officers surrounding her, but she did not stop the soothing sounds. She did not take her arms away from her hoodie. I grew up on a farm, Katie said softly. Animals get scared. You have to be calm. You have to be warm. You have to show them you're not a threat. Velkara took another step closer. She was right next to Katie now. She could smell her cubs through the fabric of the hoodie. She could smell the human too. The human smelled like warmth, like comfort, like the inside of a Mirathi den where mothers kept their young. Your body, Velkara said slowly. It's warm. Very warm. Humans run hot, Katie explained. 37 degrees usually. Sometimes higher. Velkara's eyes widened. That's almost exactly the temperature of our nesting dens. The temperature we keep for newborn cubs. Katie did not know what to say to that. She just kept holding the cubs, kept making soft sounds. She could feel them settling more and more against her body. Their little hearts were slowing down. Their breathing was becoming regular. They felt safe. Drenko was still standing with his fists clenched, but his anger was fading. He could see that his cubs were not hurt. He could see that they were calm. He could see that this human, this tiny creature he could break with one hand, was protecting his children like they were her own. Why? He asked. His voice was rough with emotion. Why did they come to you? Why did they choose you? Katie shook her head. I don't know. I was just sitting at my desk working. They must have come through the vents. They climbed into my hoodie and fell asleep. I didn't even notice. I thought the warmth was just my imagination. Velkara made a sound that might have been a laugh, or might have been a sob. It was hard to tell. They have been missing for 6 hours. We searched the entire station. We thought someone had taken them. We thought they were hurt or dead, and they were sleeping in a human's clothes. Castillo stepped forward. Ambassador, we should get the cubs out now. They need to be returned to you. Velkara shook her head. Not yet, watch. She knelt down so she was at the same level as Katie. She looked at the human's face. She looked at the way Katie was holding her cubs. Then, very slowly, she reached out and touched Katie's arm. Katie flinched but did not pull away. You have kept them safe, Velkara said. You did not know what they were. You did not know who was looking for them, but you protected them anyway. They're babies, Katie said simply. They were scared. Of course I protected them. Velkara's whiskers twitched. Among the Mirathi, the protection of young was the highest duty. It was sacred. It was the one thing that every Mirathi, regardless of clan or status, agreed on. To protect a cub, any cub, was the most honorable thing a person could do, and this human had done it without even thinking, without expecting anything in return. She had protected Mirathi cubs as if they were her own. Velkara stood up and looked at her mate. She is not an enemy, Drenko. She is a guardian. She has done what any mother would do. Drenko was silent for a long moment. Then slowly the tension left his massive body. His fists unclenched. His breathing calmed. He looked at Katie with new eyes. "How do we get them out without scaring them?" he asked. His voice was different now, softer, almost respectful. Katie looked down at her hoodie. She could feel the cubs breathing slowly and peacefully against her stomach. They were so small, so trusting. Their mother should call them, Katie said. Sing to them. Something they know. Something that tells them it's safe to come out. They'll come to her on their own. Velkara nodded. She understood. Among her people, there was a song that mothers sang to their cubs when they were safe. A song that meant home. A song that meant love. She began to sing. The sound was strange to human ears. It was made of sounds that humans could not make. It rose and fell in patterns that seemed random but were not. It was ancient. It was beautiful. It was the sound of a mother calling her children home. Inside Katie's hoodie, 3 small heads lifted. 3 pairs of golden eyes opened. 3 little noses twitched. And slowly, one by one, the cubs began to move. They crawled out of the pocket. They slid down Katie's body. They toddled across the desk on unsteady legs, and they went to their mother. Velkara gathered them up in her arms. Tears were running down her furry face. She held them close and kept singing, softer now, a song of joy, a song of relief, a song of gratitude. The crisis was over. The cubs were safe. And everyone in the room knew that something important had just happened. Something that would change the way they thought about humans forever. Katie sat at her desk, her hoodie now empty and cold. She was shaking. The adrenaline was wearing off. But she was smiling. She had done something good today. She was not sure what exactly. But it felt right. It felt like exactly what a human should do. The next 3 days on Orbital Station Harmony were very different from the ones before. The tension that had filled every corridor was gone. The fear that had gripped every heart had faded. In its place was something new. Something that felt like hope. Katie Morgan had become famous. Not the kind of famous she wanted. She was a quiet person who liked working with old documents in a silent archive. She did not want attention. But attention was exactly what she got. Every species on the station knew her name now. Every person knew what she had done. The story spread fast. A human woman had protected Mirathi cubs. She had kept them warm. She had kept them calm. She had treated them like her own children without knowing anything about them. The Mirathi spoke of nothing else. To them, what Katie had done was sacred. The protection of cubs was the highest law of their people. It was more important than war. More important than honor. More important than anything. And a human, a species they had considered weak and strange, had followed that law without even being told. On the second day after the incident, a Mirathi historian named Sullivan asked to examine Katie. She agreed, though she was nervous about being studied like a test subject. Sullivan took measurements. He recorded her body temperature. He analyzed samples of her sweat and skin. He even measured the electrical field around her body. What he found amazed everyone. Human body temperature was almost exactly the same as the inside of a Mirathi nesting den. Human sweat contained chemicals that were very similar to the calming scents that Mirathi mothers produced. Human heartbeats had a rhythm that was naturally soothing to Mirathi cubs. And human skin gave off a kind of warmth that the cub's instincts recognized as safe. In other words, to a lost and scared Mirathi cub, a human body felt almost exactly like their mother's den. It felt like home. Sullivan presented his findings to the Treaty Council. The representatives from all 6 species listened carefully. When he was done, there was a long silence. "You are telling us," said the Vrelian ambassador, a tall being with blue scales and cold eyes, "that humans are naturally suited to care for Mirathi young, that their bodies are designed this way?" Sullivan shook his head. "Not designed. Humans evolved on their own planet for millions of years before they ever met any other species. This is simply a coincidence. A beautiful coincidence. Or perhaps not a coincidence at all, said Velkara. She had been quiet during most of the meeting. Now she stood and addressed the council. Perhaps the universe is telling us something. My people came to this station with suspicion in our hearts. We did not trust humans. We thought they were weak because they do not have claws. We thought they were simple because they do not have our technology. But we were wrong. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every representative. My cubs chose a human to keep them safe. They had never met a human before. They did not know what humans were. But their instincts told them to go to her. Their instincts told them she would protect them. And she did. Drenko stood next to his mate. He was still an imposing figure, but there was no anger in his eyes now. When I first saw my cubs in that human's arms, I wanted to kill her. I thought she had taken them. I thought she was a threat. But I was wrong too. She was willing to face my anger to keep my children calm. That is not weakness. That is strength of a different kind. The peace treaty was signed that afternoon. The negotiations that had been dragging on for months were finished in hours. Every species signed. Every representative agreed. The document was sealed with official marks from all 6 governments. But the formal treaty was not the only thing that changed. On the 3rd day, Velkara came to see Katie in the records archive. She came alone, without guards or officials. She carried a small box in her hands. Katie looked up from her desk when the ambassador entered. She was nervous. She had not spoken to Velkara since that day when the cubs were found. She did not know what the ambassador wanted. Velkara set the box on Katie's desk. She opened it. Inside was a woven bracelet. It was made of something that looked like silver threads, thin and delicate and beautiful. Do you know what this is? Velkara asked. Katie shook her head. It's beautiful. But no, I don't know. It is made from my own fur, Velkara explained. Among my people, this is the highest honor we can give to an outsider. It marks you as a guardian of our line. It means that any Mirathi who sees this bracelet will know that you are trusted, that you are protected, that you are family. Katie stared at the bracelet. She did not know what to say. I just sat still, she whispered. I didn't do anything special. Velkara's whiskers twitched in what Katie now knew was a Mirathi smile. That is exactly what my cubs needed. Someone who would sit still. Someone who would stay calm. Someone who would let them feel safe. In all the chaos of our search, no one thought to just be still. No one thought to just be warm. But you did, without even knowing you were doing it. She picked up the bracelet and held it out to Katie. Will you accept this gift? Will you accept the honor my family offers you? Katie felt tears in her eyes. She was not an important person. She was just a records clerk, a translator, a woman in an old gray hoodie who liked quiet places and boring work. She had never done anything worth honoring in her entire life, but she had kept 3 scared children warm. And apparently that was enough. Yes, she said quietly. I accept. Velkara tied the bracelet around Katie's wrist. It fit perfectly. It was light and soft against her skin. Katie looked at it and felt something warm in her chest. There is something else, Velkara said. My cubs have been asking about you. They remember your smell, your warmth. They keep trying to find you. They want to see you again. Katie's eyes widened. Really? Yes, they have formed an attachment to you. It is rare for Mirathi cubs to bond with outsiders. But you are not an outsider anymore. You are their guardian. Velkara paused. Would you be willing to visit them sometimes? To let them sit with you? It would mean a great deal to my family. Katie thought about 3 small furry bodies curled up against her stomach. 3 pairs of golden eyes looking up at her. 3 tiny hearts beating against her own. I would like that, she said. I would like that very much. The peace treaty was historic. It ended centuries of conflict between 6 species. Diplomats and politicians took credit for it. Their names went into the history books. Their speeches were recorded and preserved for future generations, but Everyone on Orbital Station Harmony knew the real story. They knew that peace had been achieved not through clever words or careful negotiations. It had been achieved because a human woman in an old gray hoodie had sat still at her desk while three lost alien babies slept against her warm body. It had been achieved because she had chosen to protect instead of fear, to comfort instead of question, to be warm instead of cold. That was the human way. The other species would learn. That was what made humans special. Not their strength or their speed or their technology, but their warmth, their kindness, their strange, beautiful instinct to care for any small creature that needed them. And in the years that followed, as the peace held strong and the six species learned to trust each other, a small statue was built in the records archive. It showed a woman in a hoodie, her arms wrapped around her stomach, protecting something precious and small. The plaque beneath it read simply, "Sometimes the greatest diplomacy is just being still." Katie visited the cubs every week until they were grown, and they never forgot the human who had kept them warm on the scariest day of their lives. They never forgot the woman who had made them feel safe, and in a galaxy full of war and fear and cold, that warmth meant everything. That warmth changed the world.